Hello, everyone. We're going to start the webinar in a couple of minutes. We have a whole bunch of people who are going to be logging in, so we'll give them a few minutes to get in, then we'll get started maybe a minute after. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Phil Wolf, and I'm here with Jerry Manis, and we'd like to welcome you to today's chapter of the PDWare Explorer series. Today's topic is called Consolidated Financial Forecasting from Agile, Waterfall, and Sustaining Work. The first part of this session will be delivered by Jerry, who is Vice President of Client Success for PDWare, and is also the author of the Resource Capacity Planning Handbook. The second part of today's presentation will be a corresponding software demonstration delivered by me. Since we have a large group, we will save questions until the end. Please log your questions by selecting the Q&A box at the bottom of your control panel. We'll discuss these items after the presentation. Let's get started. Take it away, Jerry.
Thanks, Phil. I'm sure a lot of you have been in this situation before where you're scurrying to get ready for a meeting and they're trying to gather all the information, and somebody's like, okay, where's the updated, it could be customer list or financials or whatever you're bringing to the meeting. And somebody says, I emailed up, I used the 2 p.m. one, not the 1:55 one. Is that the one named final? No, the one named final. Never mind, I'll send it again. I'm sure you've been through that routine with everybody trying to gather and all the information on Excel or the information's ready for a meeting. Meanwhile, executives want to know things like, what value are we getting for our labor investment, and among other questions. But when it comes to resource planning and labor, a lot of times executives, they want to know, okay, we're spending a cost. All of this is cost, whether you're doing Agile work or Waterfall or anything. And what value are we getting? And are we investing in the right areas so that we have our resources and talent is the most valuable asset an organization has. So are we directing that towards high value opportunities? And sometimes it's difficult to tell when things are coming from all over the place. It's not an easy question to answer first of all, when you're stuck in the Excel hell trying to gather everything together, but also when your labor data is sitting in multiple systems. You might have project information in Microsoft Project or some other tool. You might have your Scrum boards and everything in Jira, and you're trying to get the information out of Jira for your Agile work. You might have your operational work or your labor or other things in Excel or other areas of the organization where people are expending time and effort. So the idea is your labor data often is sitting in multiple systems, and you're trying to get a consolidated financial forecast. And it's often stored in alternate units of measure. In some areas, it might be stored in FTEs. Your labor summary might be in operations, might be in hours, or converted to dollars. Agile, often your information is stored in terms of story points. So getting a consolidated financial forecast when you have multiple methods of working is not so easy. It reminded me of an old movie with the Marx Brothers called Duck Soup, where one of the ministers of government was talking about war, and he said it would mean a prohibitive increase in our taxes. And Chico Marx, who was the Italian one, said, hey, I got an uncle who lives in Texas. And he said, no, I'm talking about taxes, money, dollars, because that's what's on executive mind. And Chico, of course, answers, dollars, that's where my uncle lives, dollars, taxes. So anyway, I always thought that was funny, but it reminded me of that when we're talking about dollars here, because a lot of times the executives, they say they want to know what's happening in terms of dollars, and everybody's talking about story points and FTEs and so on. Now, with a little systems integration, it can be done. It's not an impossible task. It may not even be a difficult task once you have the systems in place. So the goal is you want to be able to gather your effort forecast from disparate places and methods and create a combined financial forecast. So to do that, you need at least a combined effort forecast and then convert to the financials. But you have information coming from Agile work, from Waterfall work, from your sustaining operational work. And then the trick is, how do you get that into a combined financial forecast? Now, the PDWare approach, and I realize some of you don't have PDWare, which is fine, but I'm sharing the approach here because whatever tool you're using, you can approach your vendor and say, okay, can we do something similar? or if you're, there's different ways to accomplish it. But just sharing the approach here is there's a universal API that we have that can import from other systems. So we have a built-in integration with Jira and with Microsoft Project, and then pretty much people are integrating from all sorts of systems, whether it's SAP or Hyperion and so on. So that's, I think, the starting point is you need to be able to have some kind of a universal API to be able to bring the data in from other systems to begin with, and whether it's Excel or whatever. Then the idea is you want to convert everything to FTEs. You want to take your effort from Microsoft Project, your story points, your spreadsheet data that's coming from Excel. We have a paste import facility, so you can paste it right from Excel or import it. And as long as the field names are the same in terms of column names. So the idea is you want to convert everything to FTEs in order to be able to create your forecast against the capacity you have in the system. And then that's bringing it into a single system. And then you can apply common labor rates and generate your labor cost. And that can be combined with your non-labor data to show all the portfolio value. So, it sounds easier said than done, but if you have the integrations, you convert everything to a common denominator there and be able to apply the common labor rates to be able to get your combined forecast. Now, an integration example, for instance, with PDware, the Jira information can be brought into an Agile backlog and along with team assignments. And as long as we have the team assignments, then we can say, okay, well, the teams assigned to, the people are assigned to these teams, and these teams are assigned to this work, and we can extrapolate that into an effort forecast in terms of hours. Same thing with Microsoft Project. I can come into the project scheduler or even at a high level in terms of milestones and assignments and so on. But the goal is to be able to get that down into a combined effort forecast. So we're looking at things in terms of FTEs where we can compare it to capacity, and you can see the highlighted in the bottom box there. You can see it's highlighted where there's areas of shortfall where you don't have enough capacity to satisfy the demand. And Phil's going to take you through a demo. You're going to see how we can import from multiple tools. We're going to take a look at the Agile team assignments, look at how a single resource forecast for all work is put together, and then how that's converted into a consolidated financial view along with some business intelligence reporting around the financial aspect. And again, whether you have PDware or not, you can always approach the whatever vendor you do have about trying to accomplish these things if they're able to do it. But this is basically trying to get the point across of here's how you would achieve a consolidated financial forecast from disparate systems. So at this point, Phil, I'll turn it over to you for the demo.
Okay, that sounds good. I think we'll change the share here. Let's see, it looks like I can do everything on my own. Okay. Jerry, since you're the only voice I can hear, I'll need your validation that you see on my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, great. And as Jerry, I think we pointed out early, there's a Q&A box on your control panel for the meeting. If questions come up, please hit that Q&A box. It's right in the center. And please give us some questions. We'll hit them at the end. And then I'll try to move through this quickly. So what we did, logging in here to ResourceFirst, which is the web interface for PDware. We probably have a mix of customers, prospects, people who have no idea about PDware at all. But this is basically an overall management tool that has its foundations in resource management. And what we're going to do today is take a look at three kinds of projects. Down here at the bottom of this project list, which kind of shows a list of projects and a bunch of attributes, are three kinds of projects. We have a sustaining project, D1001. We have an Agile project, D1002, and a Waterfall project, D1003. And these are going to be the subject of our overall demonstration today. So before we get into the projects themselves, what I want to do is jump over to the resource side of things for a moment and take a look at the resource list. So we have a bunch of people. These are all in one division in the organization. The PDware system can handle multiple divisions. And each person also has some attributes, things like cost rates that we'll use in cost calculations and departments and other descriptors. In addition, there's a capacity for each one of them individually. And this is, we kept it really simple. Everyone's got one full FTE across the board, and that means they can fill up all their time across any number of projects that you can assign them to. But people also can be part of teams. And so we have 4 teams identified. And these teams are groups of people that get planned together. And they also have some descriptive information as well as a team velocity. So that's how, when you get into Agile projects, you can figure out how quickly they can go. Now, if we look at Team D here, there's a couple of people in that team. We have Nicole, Cheryl, and Tina. And they're each have a % commitment to these teams. So they have their overall capacity, and they also have a commitment to the team. And most of these guys are 100% committed to the team. So whatever the team gets assigned, they're 100% going to be assigned to that. If that number is a little lower, then maybe they're only half assigned to what the team assigned to. There's different ways of configuring things. Most of the time in Agile world and sustaining project worlds, the people are fully committed to the projects, and that keeps things really easy. But we can also handle the more complex scenarios as well. So anyway, we have the team and has a bunch of people in it, and it also potentially has assignments. And so what we did here is we assigned Team D to a sustaining application. That's the first of the 3 projects we were talking about, and we can keep things pretty simple. So you just pick the project. In this case, we selected the sustaining project. There are some other options as well. And what we're going to do is assign this team 25% of its effort to sustaining work. And so this could be a single application. It's possible that there are no formal project plans, or maybe there's just ongoing work that happens in a repeatable fashion. And so we can just predict what amount of time this team is going to spend, and they just take care of it. A lot of times support items work this way as well. So now that this team has been assigned, that also means that the individuals have been assigned too. So if we go back to the individual resource list, for instance, and we take a look at Cheryl, who was on that team, Cheryl now has a couple of different assignments. She has a resource assignment where she's assigned as an individual. Actually, she doesn't have any time on that one yet. We'll probably get back to that later on. And then she also has a sustaining assignment, which was part of the team. And so when you assign a team, you're actually assigning the individuals as well. And you can see the type of the assignment is the team assignment. And so as an individual, this will affect her utilization. Right now, she's only 25% utilized, so she's got some remaining availability to do additional work. And then when we look at utilization across the board, she represents 25%. And this is a view that shows all resources, whether you're on a team or being assigned individually, and it shows your individual contribution. Where you see red, that means you're overcommitted a little bit. And if you're blue, that means you have remaining capacity to do additional work. So that's the example of sustaining project, very easy. I think in Jerry's presentation, he talked about the fact that we can enter that data manually. We can also paste import it from an Excel spreadsheet. A lot of times the sustaining work exists in a separate, Excel type system or Access type system. And so you can quickly get that information into the PDWare database. So let's jump back to the project list for a second. So that was the first of the 3. And we can even filter these if we want to. So we just, we can bring these guys up to the top. So the first of the 3 that we're looking at was sustaining. Now let's look at Agile for a second. So Agile projects and Agile work start with a backlog. So here's a list of user stories. And the user stories tend to come into the system, not through manual entry, even though it's very easy to do it. Usually somebody has an existing system. It could be Jira, which we have a out-of-the-box interface for, CA Rally, Microsoft Foundation Server. There's a bunch of other ones out there that do the same thing. And basically, user stories tend to be tied to features, which are tied to epics in most of these systems. And so here we have the user stories. They're tied to individual features. In this case, epics come in at the project level. We match projects at that level. And so projects end up having features like user interface, which will have a series of user stories here, and then the back end. And you can have many other features as well, and you can manage these. And so if we take an individual project like number 800, we can expand it and we can see some of the detail behind that user story. We have a description of the feature, which team it's assigned to, at some point priority, as well as what sprint it ends up being, what sprint it lands in for development work. And so this represents the whole inventory of user stories. And if you remember when we talked about teams, when we're mapping teams, teams have a velocity and user stories have a priority. And putting all those things together, what we're able to do is create a roadmap which shows when each of the potential user stories can get done. And so by having, this is one of the reasons why in the Agile world, it does help to have some element of resource management, because you can start to do some validity checking, just like you can with the utilization report. There's no coincidence that the colors are the same. You can see when things make sense and when they don't. So right now we have user stories on sprint 8. We have a couple of them that seem to fit based on the team assignment and the velocity, and a couple that don't, because they're turning red because it seems like they can't complete that work within that period of time. So either they have to be spread across multiple sprints, or they have to move to a place where they could fit. And it's not necessarily a one-for-one, because again, it depends on the assignment and the priority. And so this allows for planning, and in some cases, a particular move doesn't fit. And I think we're able to, nope, not that one either. Well, I think I'm out of luck with my movement, but the idea is we should be able to find a place where certain projects can fit based on, certain user stories can fit based on velocity and the team that they're assigned to. Anyway, the key is that once this is all mapped out, the mapping isn't as much the key in this particular demonstration as it is being able to convert this over into the effort forecast. And so as Jerry talked about, what we want to do is take those team assignments, we know where they are and we know how long they are, and convert things that are typically in either story points or complexity points and velocity into an overall forecast. And so you hit this update team forecast, and what it does is it sends the allocation information from this roadmap report into the forecast. And so now, if we go from here and jump back to the project data sheet and we look at the Agile forecast, or the D1002 forecast, what we'll see is now we've turned this into team-based assignments. And so now we have those team assignments in the forecast as if they came from any other kind of project. So we now have taken data that could have come from Jira or Microsoft Foundation server, brought it into the system, mapped it out, put it alongside all the other projects, and then broke down the labor forecast into here. And so now we've addressed sustaining work and Agile work and put them in the same type of forecast. So now we're going to do one more. So this is the third project that we spoke about, which is D1003. That's the Waterfall project. And so as we bring this project up, this is a new project. Actually used a template to add in some of the basic information. Right now it has no forecast, although I did, just to shortcut a few things, add a couple of resources into it. We have no financials in the system, and we go into the schedule. Oh, actually I left it in here, so we'll do an update on it. But basically where this schedule comes from is Microsoft project. We hit import MPP, we go and we grab a Microsoft project file. We bring it into the system, we load it. Takes a second or two. And then that updates all the information. So now we have an update from an existing MPP file managed by a project manager in a separate system. And this loads in the entire work breakdown structure. And it also loads in the resources. So when I show my resource forecast, it will consolidate those. And what this red bar chart is showing is that at the moment, we have a labor plan inside this project plan when we have all the resources assigned that does not necessarily match up with the official forecast. And that's because I showed you a minute ago that we actually didn't have a forecast. And so what we do is once we have the project plan loaded up, we're able to do a request resources, and the system will add up the aggregate of all the individual resource assignments for the resources on the project. And then we go into, this usually will send a request to a line manager or a series of line managers, and there could be some notification involved if we want to. We can have a message go out. But then they can go into the request system and do a refresh on the open, and the request for all those resources to create a resource plan that maps up with the project plan comes right into here. And so now this is very easy. Somebody who is in charge of these people can either manually accept these, do them one at a time for dramatic effect, or this is actually something that can be automated as well with a setting so that you get the log history of the request, but it automatically goes into the forecast. So once these items are requested, we then can go to the project data view and reload that project. And so now, well, I might need to do a full refresh. I need that. Yeah, so now the forecast is in here, and so this is a forecast that represents the project plan that was submitted, and it may not be perfect. We may need to move this around the context of some others, but it represents all the labor that came through that project plan. And in fact, if we go back into the scheduler and we view the histogram, we can now see that this project is now valid with respect to the official forecast. That forecast may not be perfect with respect to other projects that are out there, but the labor plan and the forecast now go together, and it's in sync. So all the work is scheduled in the time that's been allowed by the functional management team. So now what we've done is we have taken all three types of projects and created labor forecasts for them. And we can either look at those projects individually, or we can go to the assignment view and we can look across all projects. And just like before, we can filter on the D's, I guess. And we can see all the different assignments. And you'll notice actually this highlights the fact that when we did the sustaining project and the Agile project, we assigned people by team. And then when we did that last Waterfall project, we worked with people individually. And so there's actually a setting here, and you can flip from team assignment mode to individual mode, and we'll get all the individual assignments here as well. So that brings everything together. So this is only part of the equation right now. We've gotten the consolidated labor forecast, but now we need to turn this into a cost forecast. And so let's go back to our Waterfall project for a second and note that every project also has financial entities. When you add different types of cost items, this is where you add them. So you can have things like revenue, which is obviously a benefits type line item, but then you can also have different costs like hardware, consulting, travel, materials, and these are all configurable. Labor is one that tends to get maybe manually entered early on in a project cycle, but usually it gets posted because we have this great project plan and this effort plan, so we might as well use the real numbers. And so what we can do here is post the labor cost, which now comes from that forecast that we put together. Let's go back to January and grab the numbers from January 1st going forward, and we post, and now we have some financial numbers in the system that we can work with. So that's for one project. So we'll save that. And then if we click over here, we can now see the financial forecast for all projects in this particular division. It looks a little bit like the effort forecast, but you have different kinds of numbers in here, and you can see the different financial items and the categories. And looking at it this way, it's a lot of information, a lot of individual line items. And this is the forecast information. We can also potentially add actuals. But remember, we were bringing the projects from 3 different kinds of projects together. We created the labor plan. Now we have all the forecast items. And this allows us to see a total picture of what the overall cost of the portfolio is. And so these are all the projects in the divisions, including the D projects that are at the bottom. And the totals represent the total amount in the portfolio. And so we've now done it. We've now pulled together all the different types of projects, created a common labor forecast, and we created a financial forecast as a result. So this ultimately is where we want to be. Now, this view is an interesting one, and you'll probably come back and see it again some more in additional webinars, because this is also where we start to do some what-if scenario planning. We can do things like delay projects and scale projects at different size and run different scenarios and compare them. And so we're starting to get into that area. But right now, we're using it today just to show that we can show the total amount of the total value of the portfolio using all different kinds of work. Now, this is one way of displaying the information. In addition, we have other reports that we can show that come out of our BI system. And so the first one I wanted to show, which kind of demonstrates the item, is we call this a revenue report, but it also has a cost report as well. And here is total revenue by project. We didn't really focus on that part, but if you look down here, you can see the expense and the revenue minus expense for the portfolio with each of the projects that are up there. Another way of looking at this information is this metrics report. And this is showing, again, projects, but broken down by division. And so now that we have the labor cost and we have all the financial forecasts, we can break things down by different division or subdivision inside the organization. We also can take that same information and break it into other types of entities like strategies and products. So this is a product report. And this one, start over here, showing the total value of the portfolio, broken not just by project, but project mapped against products. And then you can see for product A, B, C, and D, the total value, both from a contribution standpoint and a cost standpoint, and also a comparison against the budget. So these 2 graphs, one is showing revenue minus, revenue and benefits overall, and the second one is showing how we're doing compared to the budget on the cost side. I'll jump over here, and this is sort of a breakdown of those products, and you can see the cost percentage breakdown as it compares to revenue, and this is the monthly cost breakdown on the bottom over here, as well as a comparison against the budget. So a whole bunch of different ways in which we can now display this data. One final one, and then probably wrap it up, which is a new report we call Project Performance. And there was one particular area that I liked, that I thought I would show, which is financial FTE performance. And down here, we're seeing cost versus baseline. But if you show cumulative, you can see the lifetime effect of basically comparing the overall cost against the baseline, both for labor and for the total cost on the project. And over here on the all the way on the right, you can see the variance as well. So you can see percent FTE variance, which is showing the labor plan, and a percent cost variance, which is showing that cost plan over time. And all of that is tied together in this common process. And so what we just demonstrated is that we can bring projects in of different types, sustaining work, waterfall work, as well as Agile work, bring it all together using different techniques to get everything into one common labor forecast, turn that labor forecast into a cost forecast, and then display it in lots of different ways. And I think with that, we can open it up for questions.
All right, I have a few questions here, Phil. One is there an API with SAP allowing the integration of actual labor through time reports with labor costing through PDWare?
I'm not with the question is, we've actually used interface. Our API can handle integration with SAP in both directions. So in some cases, people are doing time tracking, certainly in operational divisions in SAP, and they want to bring that information into PDWare so they can see a total labor cost. So that, in fact, is something we can do. And in some cases, we create this overall plan, and we're capturing actuals, and we want that information to go back over to SAP. And it's a slightly different process, but we're able to do that as well.
Okay, next question says, we use PDWare for pipeline project forecasting, but use Microsoft Project for project planning and are also looking to use Jira. The challenge we have is time tracking for resources and making it easy. We don't want resources to spend a lot of their time entering work hours. How would you best utilize the multiple, says PPS, on a weekly time tracking basis? Can data be imported and exported across apps?
So there's a couple of different ways to do that. The easiest way is to do exactly what we did today in the presentation, create one common labor forecast and time track against that at the project level. I always recommend, and we always recommend, tracking at the project level unless you have a business need to go below that. Sometimes people go to the phase level or one level down to get cycle times at the, for their life cycle phases, and that's acceptable if you're really going to use the data, because that adds a level of work. And sometimes people go down to the task level and capture every single line item. Again, if your project managers are truly replanning tasks based on actuals, then that's not a bad thing to do. But it creates a lot of work and a lot of data volume. And if you're not going to get value out of it, why bother? You can get most of the information that you need by tracking at the project level. The other possibility is that the individual systems will have people tracking actuals on their own. Like sometimes people, especially those in support groups, will use Jira not just to lay out the effort on a task, but to track actuals. In fact, half the time they don't put the effort in. They just, once the item is done, they list how much time they spent on it. That information can be imported into PDWare, as well as information from any other time card system that's out there. So we provide a good consolidation platform, whether you use us as the timesheet or use us as the consolidation center.
All right, you might have just answered this, but how do you get from story points to FTEs again from Jira?
So we did sort of walk through that in the presentation. It's a multi-step process, and I wouldn't expect everyone to get all the details squared away right off the bat. But effectively, when we set up the teams, we're storing their velocity rate. And when we create the user stories in the backlog, or we import the user stories, they all come in with a set of a value in terms of their points or what their estimation is. And so what those two things do, along with priority, is help us to lay out what we call a roadmap, where each of the user stories are going to take place. And again, like any other estimating process, as you get closer to the current date, you're going to have better accuracy. Down the road, you're going to have a little bit of error in the process, but it doesn't matter because you generally know when people are going to be working on the project. If there's 100 user stories to take care of and each one's going to take a sprint, then there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 sprints, right? And the other metrics all just help to normalize all that. And so we create this overall roadmap, and then we're able to take that roadmap. We know when people are allocated, we know what percentage they're allocated, and then we're able to turn that into forecast assignments by posting it. And that's part of the algorithm that we've built. It flips it all into FTEs that can be compared against capacity. And that's how we normalize it.
That is all the questions we have one more came up. Are these forecasting capabilities available on the new on-demand PDWare version, or are they also available on the earlier desktop version?
That's a good question. So we still support the web client and the desktop. Forecasting, effort forecasting is available in the desktop, but the things that are not available in the desktop is viewing the backlog. So any of that JIRA stuff that we showed with respect to team assignments, applying them to user stories, converting the roadmap, at this point, those are all online services. You can have the ResourceFirst system either hosted with us or you can install it internally, but you do need that web client to be able to see those things. The example I gave on sustaining work is something that can be done in either client. And the example I gave in the Waterfall process is actually available in either client also. Even the import of Microsoft Project, it's just that the process flow is a little bit different, but it can be done.
Okay, another question is, how many customers typically import financial input directly from finance?
I can't give you an exact number, but especially early in the year, there's a large number of our clients who do that. Let's use SAP or Oracle Financials as an example. The official annual operating plan numbers tend to come into our system at some point early in the year, and those numbers become the overall budget that you work with. There's a little bit of give and take in that process because usually generating the operating plan requires laying out the master labor forecast, which then is used in different ways to get to SAP. Some people do the financial calculations here and send that information. Most people will send the labor forecast. In a lot of cases, since it's a system of record, SAP will calculate the official numbers, and then those official numbers can be restored back in PDWare as a comparison for all work going on that year.
Okay, that appears to be all the questions, unless somebody has any more.
Yeah, so final comment, you let me know if anything pops up, but this whole concept of hybrid environments is still fairly new, and it's something that we continue to learn about, we continue to build functionality about. We're really happy to have conversations on this topic. Whether you're ready to move forward with a system or you just want to talk about it from a process perspective, we're definitely happy to set up a call. We're always learning. I imagine everyone else is always learning too. So you can reach Jerry or I think both of our information is out there. An easy way to remember how to reach us is also just sales@pdware.com, but here's Jerry's email is up there, and we're certainly happy to take your call, so feel free to reach out. And I think that's it for today's presentation. If anything else comes up afterward, please just send us a note and we'll be happy to get back to you. And thank you. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.